This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Carolyn Stokes. We begin with a domestic disturbance that turned lethal just days before Christmas in rural Newfoundland. In Supreme Court today, Brandon Knoftel admitted to accidentally killing his stepfather in 2020, pleading guilty to manslaughter. Here and Now's Malone Mullen was in the courtroom and has this report, but first a warning: some may find the details of this story disturbing.
It's a family now divided by tragedy, but in the early morning of December 18, 2020, it was money at the root of their conflict, a fight that began over $150. According to a statement of facts, 26-year-old Brandon Knoftel had just sold a gaming system, trying to make some extra cash for Christmas presents. The money had been e-transferred to his mother, who agreed she would give it to him. The following night in Renews, Knoftel wanted the money, but his mother didn't have it. The two got into a fight. She barricaded herself in her bedroom. But the fighting continued, and Knoftel pushed his way in and took his mother's purse. Melinda Knoftel struck her son, who hit her back. She ended up in a headlock, thrown to the floor before her husband, Robert Knoftel, stepped in. Robert had been Knoftel's stepfather since he was 3. The family had just rented a new home together, but that night, stress boiled over. The two wrestled on the floor of the son's bedroom. Then, according to Brandon Knoftel, his stepfather cornered him. Knoftel countered with a pocket knife, swiping the air, stabbing his stepfather 4 times. He claims his stepfather also had a knife, though police were never able to find one. One of those wounds punctured Robert's heart, another his lung, leaving him bleeding out and struggling to breathe. Paramedics refused to treat the injured man, saying they felt unsafe with the younger Knoftel present. Instead, the mother and son loaded him into their truck and sped towards St. John's. They were stopped by police along the way, and Robert died before they reached the hospital. Brandon Knoftel was originally charged with second-degree murder, but prosecutors instead accepted a guilty plea to a manslaughter charge. Knoftel told the Crown he didn't mean to kill his stepfather or put him at risk of death. He also expressed remorse today, at one point holding back tears as his family sat behind him. A sentencing hearing has been scheduled for September 9th. Malone Mullen, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, a volunteer firefighter is dead after the fire truck he was driving crashed yesterday afternoon on Route 239 on the Bonavista Peninsula. According to police, the man was responding to a service call shortly before 2 o'clock when the truck rounded a curve, left the road, and went over an embankment. Police say the man was not wearing a seatbelt and was ejected from the vehicle. He was taken to hospital in Clarenville, where he was later pronounced dead. Well, police in Bay Roberts and Holyrood are investigating a rash of crimes that happened early Wednesday morning. The crimes involved stolen heavy machinery, and RCMP believe they're all connected. So here's what happened. Shortly after 3 a.m., there was a report of a break-and-enter at the Ultramar and South River. The interior of the store was heavily damaged and an ATM was stolen. Surveillance video shows that 2 masked suspects had been there an hour prior in a pickup truck. Drag marks led police to a nearby construction site. There was no sign of the ATM there, but police did find an abandoned backhoe. It's believed both the truck and the backhoe were stolen from the highway depot in Bay Roberts. Now, police soon found a truck burning in the wooded area near Brigus Junction. But the spree didn't end there. Someone used a vehicle to break into the eastbound International Speedway in Avondale, damaging several buildings as well as a race car. And that's where police found the stolen ATM from South River. Someone used an eastbound excavator to break it open and steal the cash inside. The RCMP's forensic team is investigating, and anyone with information is asked to contact Crime Stoppers. Well, a West Coast woman who says the RCMP went into her home unannounced is pushing back against the police tonight. This week on the show, you heard from Courtney Pike. She says 2 RCMP officers entered her Mount Moriah home early Sunday morning looking for a missing girl. Now, Pike says they entered quietly through a basement door, woke her sleeping 11-year-old daughter, and questioned her without alerting Pike and her partner, who were sleeping upstairs. The RCMP, however, says officers knocked multiple times and rang the doorbell. But Pike says that simply isn't true.
We don't have a doorbell. There's no doorbell on our front door. There's no doorbell on our basement door. And the basement door is the one in which they entered. For them to say that they were excessively knocking on windows and doors and ringing a doorbell is a lie. We were just sleeping. No one was in a coma.
Well, that's part of a longer video address Pike shared today on social media. She says she doesn't know why police came into her home, but wants them to admit the mistake and apologize to her daughter. And we'll continue to follow this story.
Today was a pretty lovely day out there. We did see some increase in cloud across most of the province, some showers as well in and around a good chunk of the big land as well as the island. But the bigger picture is an area of low pressure that is going to be our weather maker for the next little bit anyway, at least through Wednesday, or rather through Saturday into Sunday. So we do have all those showers that are being fed by a little bit of an atmospheric river that's going to move across as we head into Friday, even into Saturday for parts of the island, and it's going to lead to some pretty significant rainfall amounts in some cases, particularly the southern areas of the island. We do have a rainfall warning in place. There's a look at the rain moving through. So it starts tonight through tomorrow afternoon. We're going to see things taper to some showers, and then some heavier rain will move in again Friday evening, leading to a pretty beautiful day on Saturday. I'll get into the full forecast coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, the controversy over a secret report into possible harassment and bullying at Elections NL has taken another turn. The Privacy Commissioner says despite the Premier's public statements, he won't review that report and prepare it for release. He says the provincial government didn't give him enough time to even consider their request before going to the media. Here Now's Garrett Barry joins us live in the newsroom tonight. So Garrett, get us up to speed. What exactly happened today?
Carolyn, we're getting into a pretty detailed fight now about exactly who has what job in the House of Assembly. You'll remember that yesterday, the Premier told the public he asked the Privacy Commissioner to take a look at this report about alleged bullying and misconduct at Elections NL. He said the Privacy Commissioner would scrub it and prepare it for release. Well, today, the Commissioner put out a statement. He said he won't do that. He said it would be inappropriate and would impede or could impede his ability to review what government ends up releasing. He wrote in a statement that if he provides detailed advice on a decision of a public body, in this case reviewing proposed redactions, he will become part of the decision-making process and thereby undermine his ability to provide independent review. If there was a complaint about this matter, he said my ability to review it would be compromised. Just this afternoon, government responded to that statement. Minister John Hogan said he believes Cabinet is allowed to ask Privacy Commissioner Michael Harvey for advice, but given the Commissioner is concerned about a conflict of interest, he will instead have the usual information coordinators redact the report instead. He said it's also being sent to the House of Assembly Management Commission, where any further action would be decided upon. Again, this is a report about alleged bullying and misconduct at Elections NL, and its existence has been the subject of rumors for several weeks. The opposition believes it's at least a few months old, but government only acknowledged its existence on Tuesday. The Premier and the Justice Minister said they only just got their hands on it early this week. Isn't it your job to figure out what's going on?
It is our job to do as legislation requires. We didn't file the report. The report wasn't filed with us, it was filed with the Speaker. The Speaker then sent the report to government, and government did immediately take steps to deal with it. That's our job, and we did our job. Sure. We did it in less than 24 hours.
The report allegedly includes 10 findings and involves 21 employees. Government says the report will still be redacted and released, but Hogan wouldn't give a timeline for that this afternoon. Carolyn? Thank
you so much, Garrett. That's Here Now's Garrett Barry reporting live. Well, Well, there have been strong hints that Bay du Nord may be the last offshore oil project to get federal environmental approval in this province. But tonight, there are just as strong signs oil companies and its supporters don't see it that way. Here now's Terry Roberts reports.
It's Jim Keating's job to advance the oil industry here in Newfoundland and Labrador. So it's not surprising that he sees a bright future in the offshore, with as many as 3, possibly 4 more producing oil fields within the next decade.
We've already heard about the tremendous benefit of Bay du Nord. Just imagine 3 or 4 more of those in the span of the next decade.
Keating turned heads during his recent speech at the Energy NL conference, boasting about a new prospect called Blue Jacket that oil companies are said to be drooling over. Keating believes it could be the next Bay du Nord.
It is a prospect like no other.
It's one of 20 prospects discovered during a government-funded seismic exploration program over the last decade. Prospects like Blue Jacket have billion-barrel potential, says Keating.
It is simply massive. We know there's interest from a number of companies, even some new entrants. So I'm very hopeful, cautiously optimistic that we'll see a resurgence in exploration.
There are exploration and seismic campaigns planned for this summer and more in the works for next year.
It's almost like they think they're living on a different planet.
Keating's bullish outlook is not popular with environmentalists such as St. Anthony native Gretchen Fitzgerald. She says the Sierra Club and other groups will continue to fight against oil and gas expansion. Fitzgerald says the province should focus on renewable energy projects and set an example the rest of the world can follow.
We know that if we want a safe future for our kids and a sustainable economy going forward, there can be no new oil exploration. Full stop.
But Jim Keating says this province can play a big role in the energy transition. He says the plan to achieve net zero emissions by 2050 will still require up to 40 million barrels of oil every day.
So why shouldn't our oil, which I just mentioned as advantaged, it being lower cost, lower emitting, and a secure, stable environment, why can't it meet that?
But it will be an uphill battle. The federal government gave approval to Bay du Nord in April. At that time, the environment minister said future projects will be more challenging because of tighter restrictions and carbon pricing. However, Keating believes the pandemic and Russian invasion of Ukraine have exposed the need to balance climate change with factors such as energy security and affordability.
It needs all 3, and that's what we have here.
The number of companies looking for oil and gas has dropped significantly since the pandemic. And the fact many of the world's biggest players are continuing to invest in the offshore is encouraging, says Keating. But that opinion is not universal and will ensure the debate over oil and gas will continue to be a combustible one for years to come. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Mothers Against Drunk Driving honored a dozen police officers today for their work getting impaired drivers off the streets in this province. The awards began in 2019 and are named after Nick Coates. The 27-year-old man was killed by a drunk driver in 2013. There are 2 categories of awards for the 12 RNC and RCMP officers. Gold is awarded to an officer who takes at least 12 impaired drivers off the road, and silver for nabbing a minimum of 8 impaired drivers. Those awards were handed out this morning at Fort Townsend in St. John's. While the event shows that work is being done to make the streets safer, the RNC says there's still more to do.
And it also increases the public awareness of the numbers that are, of impaired drivers that are on a road. When you think about the sheer numbers and the volume of some of the things we've heard today at these awards, the reality is it's preventable. And we will do whatever is within our power, whether it be public education, a partnership with our stakeholders, stepping up our enforcement initiatives to take impaired drivers and eradicate impaired drivers from our streets and roads in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Well, the most successful Canadian musical to ever run on Broadway in New York will close in the fall. Come From Away, the musical that seemed to take the world by storm, wraps up on October 2nd.
On the northeast tip of North America, on an island called Newfoundland, there's an airport. And next to it,
Well, when the show closes, Come From Away will have been performed 1,670 times on Broadway. The show debuted in March of 2017 with Justin Trudeau and former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien attending the performance. The show's producing company made the announcement on Twitter last night. Come From Away has brought many tears to the eyes of its audience and inspired many people to travel to this province to see in real life what they watched on stage. Well, in other news, the remains of 2 Beothuk people are heading home. The provincial government has made a decision to return the skulls to Beothuk Lake 200 years after they were stolen. Here Now's Ryan Cook reports.
It's been 2 centuries since these quiet shores were the site of a bloody stain on Newfoundland and Labrador's history. Beothuk lives lost, skulls stolen from graves.
Well, the spirit of those people have been in limbo for 200 years.
Damasuit was kidnapped in 1819. Her husband, Anasabasut, was killed. When she died of tuberculosis, she was taken back here and buried with him. Their skulls were later stolen and held at a Scottish museum for 200 years. Chief Joe fought hard to have those remains repatriated. They were finally returned here in 2020 and held at the rooms in St. John's. And now, formal acknowledgement that they're going back to where they came from, Beothuk Lake.
Working in lockstep with the Indigenous leaders, we arrived at a place where we will build a nice facility. A facility that will, the remains will be secure.
The province has earmarked $250,000 for a cultural center somewhere at the lake. There's already a National Historic Site at Indian Point near Millertown, where it's believed the original grave site sits just across the water. The final resting place is still to be determined.
They will not be on display. However, there's so many things that we can do around that we're still in the sort of the preliminary stages. There can be storyboards, Beothuk artifacts. There's a number of things that we can do that will tell the story of those people, and that's really what we want to do.
Wherever the remains end up, Chief Joe is happy they'll be out of limbo and back in a final resting place.
So once they're back in Newfoundland and put back to where they were taken from in a respectful and honorable way, their spirits will be at peace, and hopefully we can start to do more of that.
Ryan Cook, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, it's a beautiful evening out there tonight. We do have a rainy 24 hours in store, but a beautiful weekend. I'll get into the full forecast coming up.
Time for a look at the weather. It was a nice day in St. John's today. I noticed that it felt significantly cooler when all the fog rolled in to St. John's Harbor. I was down in that area, and yeah, the wind really felt chilly.
Oh yeah, that tends to happen.
Yeah.
But then that sun, burns off the fog, kind of, and those temperatures warm up. So it was pretty nice once we got through the day. But yeah, it was a chilly start today in some areas. Let's take a look at our overnight lows last night. -1 in Cartwright. Temperatures, that was the coldest. Everywhere else, still seeing some pretty mild temperatures in Stephenville at 12 degrees for your temperature this morning. But temperatures really warmed up this afternoon, particularly in the Gander area. 23 degrees today, a little cooler for Bonavista. St. John's around 12, but again, that sun felt fairly nice. But yeah, definitely some beautiful weather through central. 22 degrees was the daytime high in Badger. Same thing for even southeastern areas of the Big Land. 23 degrees in Mary's Harbor today. Same thing for Lanzaloo, a little cooler than that, about 22. But these are the warmest temperatures for you in Lanzaloo since August 23rd, and then the warmest in Mary's Harbor since September 22nd. So definitely feeling like summer, lots of heat out there. And the good news is it's still beautiful out there right now, 23 degrees still this evening in Mary's Harbor. Now we take a look at the temperatures across the rest of the province. 18 degrees in Happy Valley, Goose Bay right now. Same thing for Corner Brook. Temperatures dropped a degree in Port Basket, 9 degrees, same thing for Burgeo. And we're looking at these temperatures, cool temperatures, because we're in onshore flow with the showers rolling through as well. Most of the activity at the moment is over the maritime provinces. As you can see, some of the heavier rain pushing through. This is going to head our way as we head through the night tonight and into tomorrow. We're already starting to see some showers out ahead of that, and some of the cloud cover as well moving in. So things will start to get progressively worse as we head through the overnight tonight as far as the rainfall amounts go. So we'll see some of the heavier rain arrive after midnight, it looks like, for the south coast. Winds still out of the southeast, so areas that are prone to southeasterlies or enhanced southeasterlies will see some pretty gusty winds tonight, between 80 even 100 kilometers per hour is certainly possible. And those showers are going to work their way north as we head into the morning hours right across the board. And then same thing for the western portion of Labrador. You'll see some showers roll through as well. Temperatures tonight much warmer than they have been the last couple of nights, anywhere from 9 to 12 degrees through the overnight. St. John's about 8 degrees. Again, you'll see some showers by the time we get to the morning hours. The winds not too bad except along the coast in those southeasterlies. As far as Labrador goes, 9 degrees in Lab City tonight, and the northern peninsula a bit cooler, so you're going to drop down to about 5 degrees through the overnight tonight. Those heavier rain showers are going to taper to showers as the day goes on, particularly for the island. Same thing up across Labrador as well. Eastern areas still looking at periods of rain though through the day. Same thing for the southern portion of the island. But the heavier rain is going to move in as we get into the evening and overnight hours for eastern areas. There is a look at that there. Likely heavy at times through the overnight, and you'll pretty much taper off for the west coast, at least through a good chunk of the night. As we get into Saturday, that shower activity is going to move off, and we should actually see some clearing skies, which is going to be lovely into the afternoon on Saturday. Temperatures rising as well. We could see some areas reaching the mid-20s again on Saturday. So no surprise that we do have a rainfall warning in place all along the south coast, except for Port Basket, you're still under a special weather statement. But we're talking about some pretty significant accumulations here of some rainfall. So 30 to 50 millimeters is a good bet all along the south coast, including eastern Newfoundland. But extreme southern areas of the island could pick up between 50 and 75 millimeters of rain, and this will fall through Saturday morning. So taking a look at the temperatures tomorrow, a little bit cooler than where we're sitting today, but still in the teens. The winds again brisk out of the south between 20 to 40 kilometers per hour, except along the west coast where you could see those gusts between 70 and 80 kilometers per hour. For the Big Land, you're looking at temperatures between 9 to 15 degrees through the day. The winds will shift from easterly to northeasterly. So once we get rid of this rain on Friday, Saturday is looking beautiful. Again, we'll talk about all of the details on that. Temperatures in the 20s for a good chunk of the island.
some garden staples, and some rare beauties on offer at the Friends of the Garden Spring Sale this Saturday at the Botanical Garden. We'll speak with Nursery Manager Tim Walsh coming up. Well, for gardeners in the metro area, it is one of the most anticipated sales of the year. The Friends of the Garden Spring Plant Sale is happening this Saturday at the Botanical Garden, and joining me now is Nursery Manager Tim Walsh. So I have been to these sales before. There is often a line of people waiting to get in on Saturday morning. Why is this sale so popular?
Oh yeah, so they're very exciting sales, aren't they? And so the reason I think being is because we're a botanical garden. Because of that reason, we have just such a wide variety of plants that we grow in the botanical garden displays. And so a lot of what we have for sale here are plants that we've propagated from those plants. Of course, the Friends of the Garden themselves are no slackers when it comes to gardening, and some of them are they may not be professionals, but they've had years and years of tending to their own gardens, and they've built up their own wonderful collection. So they share those as well, and so a lot of them will bring in seeds from their special plants or cuttings from their special plants, and we propagate all that here in the nursery. since last fall when they had a very successful fall sale and kind of cleared out the beds. Ever since then, we've been growing plants in anticipation of the spring sale, and so now we have a huge collection that's ready to go out.
And this is different than, you know, if you go to a hardware store to pick up a plant. They often come from Ontario, so those plants may do well in other climates, but not necessarily here. These plants do well in Newfoundland.
Absolutely. So they're tried and true, right? They've been growing here for years, and we don't generally sell things unless we know that. So even when we get new plants here at the Botanical Garden, that's part of the purpose of the nursery, is to kind of nurse them along and make sure that they're hardy enough and ready to go out into the big world. And so they spend time in the nursery. So the same thing with the sale plants. We don't sell anything right away. We'll grow it for a while if we're not sure of that plant, if it's a new variety for us. And we'll make sure that it's hardy and tried and true, and it's gone through a few winters for sure before we even plant it in our own botanical garden, and definitely before we sell it to the public.
And the prices are pretty good too, compared to a lot of places.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a little bit different, of course, than a nursery. The nurseries are out there doing fantastic work, and please visit your local nurseries to get plants for your garden. But this is a one-day thing. It's just one Saturday morning, this Saturday coming, for 3 hours. And as you said, the lineups will be there, but they're very exciting. They're lots of fun. So don't be worried about a lineup if you're going to come. You know, come on in and get in that lineup. You'll talk to gardeners, you'll talk to volunteers, you'll talk to me and other staff. We'll all be here to help you through that sale and hopefully go home with some prize plants for you to fix up your own garden.
And what kind of plants are on offer this year?
Absolutely, a little bit of everything and a lot of some things. So we have a wide collection of herbaceous perennials, and so those are the plants that grow up every year and produce the beautiful blooms like the peonies and the asters and things like that. And then in the fall and the winter they die to the ground, and so there's nothing showing for the winter. So those are great because they give you all that summer color and all that wonderful interest. And then there's the trees and the shrubs, and so those are woody plants that hold that structure all year long. And some of them are evergreen and some of them are deciduous.
And I know you always have something special on offer, you know, either something rare that you don't normally find around here. Do you have anything like that this year?
Absolutely. Want me to show you?
Yes, please.
Let's have a look.
So what are these little beauties here?
And they are beauties indeed, Carolyn. These are really rare, actually. They're very uncommon to find, certainly in the nursery trade. This is an old variety that's been in Newfoundland Garden since the 1800s. It's called Fair Maids of France, and it's a beautiful little beautiful blooms. It's actually in the buttercup family, so you might see similarities in the foliage to the wild buttercups that you see out on the roadsides and in fields. But what's interesting about this plant is it produces this double flower. So instead of just a single whorl of petals like you see in a buttercup, in that yellow buttercup, this one is filled with all these tiny little petals all kind of clustered together in almost like what we call a rosette, which it almost looks like a little mini rose, really.
Yeah, or a dahlia.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. What's interesting about this and the fact that it's survived for so long in Newfoundland is that it doesn't produce any seed. So the flowers are sterile. It doesn't produce any pollen. It doesn't have the ability to get pollinated by another plant. So it doesn't produce seed. And so the only way this plant is able to survive is that it literally just grows and grows, and if you want a piece of it, then the only way for you to get a piece of that is that somebody who has it has to dig it up and take a piece of it vegetatively, take some roots and some stems, and give it to you to plant in your garden.
Okay, this is just beautiful. So if someone is coming to the plant sale and they want one of these, best to come early, I would say. What time does the plant sale start on Saturday?
It starts at 9.
At 9 a.m.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, Tim Walsh, thank you so much for showing us around, and good luck with the fundraiser.
Thank you. It's been great to talk about it.
Well, after a 2-year hiatus, powwows are back. A powwow is a gathering celebrating Indigenous culture, language, music, and dance. And across the Atlantic provinces this summer, there's at least one powwow happening every weekend. We'll be bringing stories from those events in the weeks ahead, but tonight we're heading to Conn River, where local moccasin makers are very busy.
First step is that we get to hide. We got to pick out our hide, right? And it's got to be stretched the right way. Like you can't stretch your moccasins this way. It's got to be stretched weight ways. Once we get them cut out first, we'd have to cut them out. And then we get this part of the moccasins and we do the beadwork and whatever needs to be put on this tongue. And then you get your line, you get all the parts, the foot part's got to be sewn here. It was sewn all by hand with, we use sinew, which is a strong thread, and we use that, and it was all sewn by hand. Yeah, every part.
Well, I started this when I was 18, so I'm 55 now, so it's like 38 years. Just relaxing, and it's like, I don't know, I just love doing it. Anything to do with litter, I love doing it. But the sewing part, like the sewing machines and that, no, I don't like it. No, I don't know, I never was interested in sewing. Just sewing by hand, that was it. Yeah, but I really enjoy it. I spend hours at it. Just time flies by so fast. And when you got a good group to work with, it's even better. Week or so before powwow, you still got people coming in and asking for stuff. So, like, sometimes it's really time consuming. You got to try to get it done because you want to try to get it done. You don't want anybody to be left without anything for the powwow, right? So you just try it, and if you got a cart home you need in time, we'll cart home, bring it back the next day.
They're soft, they're durable, and I don't know, they just love them. I don't know, they're wanted all across Canada. It's even out in Alberta where there is a lot of moccasins, and Alberta and Nova Scotia, we get orders from because we like the shape, whatever. And we do them differently. We do them plain like they say, but sometimes somebody wants fur on them, we'll put fur on them. If they want fur lining, we'll put fur lining. At one time it was all traditional Mi'kmaq designs. And you know, but we're trying to get back into that again now. But if you come in and want a flower, we'll do your flower, you know. But if we was filling the shelves, we should, and we want to go back to all traditional Mi'kmaq designs. I feel it is important that we pass it on to the younger generation, you know. We're mostly retired staff, right, you know, but it's so nice, I don't even want to leave it. But you know, we like to pass it on to the younger ones if we can get them interested. And I've been offered, you know, anybody out there that want to come in and sit with me, like I say, anybody's welcome.
I used to go to the schools, teach them how to make moccasins and stuff like that. But they all give that up too. So, like, I wish there was more people that was interested in it, because it is a culture, and I want to keep it going. People should know what you know, the Mi'kmaq culture is like for sewing and regalias and moccasins and like mitts and everything, but it seems like there's not a lot of young ones that are interested in it. But I wish they were. I don't know about the young ones these days, but my daughter started now and she enjoys it. So it's a plus sign there. So hopefully she keeps it up.
I'm not going to retire. No, no. If my health keeps up, then I could stay here because I enjoy it so much. Yeah, I've been sewing all my life, you know, and I love making litter work, doing the litter work, and you know, putting everything into it. And it means so much when you get it done. It's just beautiful.
Returning now to a story we told you about earlier tonight, police officers being inducted into the Nick Coates Impaired Driving Team, officers who caught multiple suspected impaired drivers. Coates died in 2013 when the motorcycle he was driving was struck by an impaired driver. His father, Terry, and his stepmother, Patricia Hines Coates, attended the ceremony today and spoke with the CBC's Garrett Barry.
Every year in this province, drunk drivers take lives on the road, and every year they tear apart families. For the last 10 years, Patricia Hines Coates and Terry Coates have been advocates against drunk driving, and they join me now. Ms. Coates, it's been almost 10 years. How do you start to process everything that's happened in the last 10 years?
You don't. Some days you get up and it just feels like it was just yesterday. And then other days you get up and you're able to function as normally as can be. We're the type of people who, when we lost Nicholas, we promised him in his resting place on his gravesite that we would never stop fighting the fight of impaired driving, and it hasn't stopped. I look at you and I can see the same look that Nicholas would have. It was tenacity. You know, the pandemic has slowed us down. Life has changed for all of us, but we are diligently out there trying to make sure that people know Nicholas's story, know the story of anyone who has lost a loved one to impaired driving, or anyone who's been injured by impaired driving, and making sure that they put a face to the crime. So when they're doing this, I want them to think about Nicholas. I want them to think about Brandon Chase and all the other lost and injured people in our province, and maybe that will stop them from actually getting in that vehicle and driving when they're impaired. And I don't care if it's alcohol, drugs, street drugs, narcotics, anything. I don't want to see people on our roadways driving impaired.
You know, 10 years later, we're still here giving awards to officers who've taken dozens of impaired drivers off the road. Do you feel like you're making any progress?
Yes and no. Some days I'll open the news and I'll read about someone else who has been injured or someone else who was killed. Or, matter of fact, it has hit us a second time with one of our other children getting struck by a suspected impaired driver due to drugs. So yeah, we know the reality is it's scary, but if we can stop one person, then we feel that we've honored Nicholas that day. So I'm out, he's out in the public. We're constantly there making people listen to Nick's story. And I've had people come to me and say, why? You're never going to stop it. No, but our hope is that eventually, as the generations grow, as people mature, and people get the knowledge, that they stop and think about what they're doing and they see the consequences, and maybe they'll stop the impaired driving. I didn't do this alone. I did this in conjunction with MAG Canada, our family did, with RNC, RCMP, Heather Ellis, Officer Ken Milks. We all sat down and we worked really, really hard to find something that would work, that would honor our officers who are risking their lives every single day. They have to go knock on people's doors like they did for us and tell us that our loved one's never coming home or that our loved one is severely injured. One of our families with Matt, the dad had to make a decision on whether his son was going to live or die. Those things are long-lasting impacts on RCMP, RNC. So if we can stop and say, here's a coin in honor of Nicholas and all victims of impaired driving, and recognize that what you've done and all this hard work actually means something to somebody. Certainly means it to us because Nick's legacy is still there, but it also means it to any other. It's also important to any other victim or survivor of impaired driving because we're not forgotten. We're not a statistic this month. We're actually people who are telling you, don't drive when you're drinking or using drugs.
The Bank of Canada has released its annual review of the strengths and weaknesses in the country's financial system. The report says Canada's financial system is strong and has weathered the pandemic well, but there is one key concern.
Our number one priority is to get inflation back to target. And we've been very clear with Canadians that they should expect a rising path for interest rates to moderate demand and bring it in line with supply.
The central bank also warns that high levels of household debt and high home prices are the two biggest threats to the country's financial system. It cautions that homeowners who took on high levels of debt to buy a house during the pandemic could find themselves under even greater financial pressure as interest rates rise. Well, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stepped away from the Summit of the Americas in Los Angeles today. He paid a visit to the governor of California, and the two leaders announced a partnership to fight climate change.
This new partnership will see us work together on everything from protecting nature, driving investment in clean tech, keeping single-use plastic out of our oceans. We're also committed that Canada and California will bring together experts at UN Climate Week to drive progress on wildfires and climate and forest resilience. The bottom line is we're delivering what matters to people: clean air and water, good jobs, and a strong future that leaves no one behind.
Canada's climate change minister was there to sign the Memorandum of Understanding with his California counterpart. The agreement expands on a 2019 climate deal with California that focused on reducing vehicle emissions. Afterwards, Trudeau returned to the Summit of the Americas for a bilateral meeting with President Joe Biden. The Prime Minister is expected to push Canada's priorities, including climate change, gender equality, and economic and democratic growth. Westjet is being called out by trans advocates across Canada for not allowing people to use the X gender marker when booking flights instead of male or female. They say the airline is violating their rights, but today Westjet says it is making changes. The CBC's Felicia Chandler has more.
So I finally figured out why Westjet wasn't letting me check in online. It's because I'm trans.
Is Lloyd, a civil servant living in Halifax, recently chose Westjet for a flight, but they say checking in was an ordeal, all because they're non-binary.
I found online that this has been an issue for 3 years, and they've been called out multiple times, and they always give an excuse of it's Transport Canada, or, you know, by the end of this year, like, it's always just like, you know, we'll get to it. Well, it's been 3 years now.
Upon initially booking a series of Westjet flights last week, Lloyd noticed only male or female options were provided under gender. Lloyd picked one and assumed it would be a simple change at the airport, but quickly found out it would be anything but. Westjet staff would not let Lloyd board until using one of those two options.
They told me straight up that the reason I was being flagged was because I was trans. That was the only reason. There was no other reason for it. And just the treatment I got from the Westjet agents wasn't great.
And while Transport Canada says gender is needed to estimate the weight of passengers, a category for people with the X marker was added in 2019. Maddie McMillan, a policy analyst and trans person, says along with other community members, she drafted a call to action proposal for Westjet. She says Westjet has until the end of June to fix the problem.
We have a couple of law firms offering their services, looking at either class sort of situations, but any sort of way to lever towards a way that each party can hold their head high on an airplane. That's what we're driving towards.
This week, Westjet announced it is working to change its domestic reservation systems to include gender X by the end of 2022, and that they're working with the community. In a statement, Westjet says, "At Westjet, it is our commitment to ensure our guests have an equitable travel experience, and we owe a further explanation and apology regarding our progress on adding non-binary options to our booking and check-in systems." Lloyd says they've been consistently ignored by the airline in the past, and they hope to see Westjet stick to its word. Felicia Chandler, CBC News, Halifax.
Well, staying with travel, some tourists are finding it's just too hot to visit one of the world's most famous monuments. India's iconic Taj Mahal has seen a big drop in visitors from sweltering temperatures as high as 46 degrees. The country has been suffering under an unprecedented heat wave that scientists are attributing to climate change. India has faced a long string of temperatures well above 40 since March.
There's a great shot of the fog offshore there. We do have a bit more of that on the way with some rain We'll get into the long-range forecast, talk about how beautiful the weekend will be when I come back.
Oh, we're so close to the weekend, and Ashley, if everyone's heading out tomorrow, I suppose rain jackets are in order if you're heading to work tomorrow.
Absolutely, and even more so through the night. We're looking at some pretty heavy rain moving through for eastern areas of the island anyway. Let's take a look at what's going on out there as far as rainfall amounts go. Showed you this a little bit earlier, but figured I should show you one more time. This is through tonight, through Friday and into Saturday morning, the heaviest rain falling on the Avalon tomorrow night. But take a look at those numbers. We're talking between a good chunk of eastern Newfoundland will see between 30 and 50 millimeters. But areas along the southern portion of the island will see between 50 and 75. Some areas may even see a bit more than that by the time we get into Saturday morning. So here's one more look at that rain as it moves through. There's some good news in behind that rain, though, on Saturday afternoon. We should actually see some clearing skies for a good chunk of the island. Unfortunately, Labrador, you're going to stay generally cloudy with the potential for some showers through the day. Temperatures for you will be between 12 to 13 degrees, a little cooler for northern areas of Labrador, but only 5 degrees through the day for you. But temperatures across the island looking gorgeous. 20 to 21 degrees in St. John's, 22 through Grand Falls, Windsor, and Gander. We may even see these temperatures jump up a bit more depending on how much sunshine we see. And then we're going to hang on to the chance of showers at least for a little bit through the afternoon for the northern peninsula. Your daytime high should sit around 19 degrees. Now, as we get into Saturday evening through Sunday morning, the shower activity should generally taper off for you across the big land. Maybe in the west you may see a little bit more showers, but Sunday actually looking pretty beautiful. Maybe a few showers possible across the island as well. They'll be pretty sparse, but as we get into the afternoon, there's a better chance we could see some showers from the southwest through central. This may even be some thunderstorms. Going to keep an eye on that forecast because temperatures are going to be very mild. We're talking about temperatures between 24 and 25 through the day on Sunday. 22 degrees in St. John's with some cloudy periods through the afternoon, but still a pretty beautiful day. 19 in Port aux Basques, 15 in St. Anthony. And then as we head towards the big land, this is where we'll see some sunshine, or at least peaks of sun through the day. Between 10 to 17 degrees. Again, Nain, you're just flirting with the 10-degree mark. About 9 will be your afternoon high. Unfortunately, though, after the weekend, things will look a bit unsettled. Temperatures a bit cooler as well. So we're back down to about 10 degrees as our daytime highs for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland. Overnight lows dipping between 3 and 5. And it does look like this may continue through most of the week. But for central Newfoundland, you're looking at not too bad. Between 16 and 18 degrees to start next week. Overnight lows again, though, dipping for you around 4 degrees. And then western Newfoundland, some showers will linger on Monday. But by the time we get into Tuesday, we're looking at some sunshine and 16 degrees. That's a bit above where we should be sitting this time of year. For eastern Labrador, sunshine to start next week. Pretty beautiful, 22 degrees. And then for western Labrador, you're looking at a similar forecast with a mix of sun and cloud through the day and temperatures between 20 and 21 degrees. Look at this great shot. This is somewhere we haven't actually got a picture from before, St. Jude's. Andrea shared this great sunset there along the lake. Looks beautiful.
Oh, that is gorgeous.
It is a lovely shot. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And we love to see your photos, especially now we're starting to see some sunshine. There's icebergs, potentially whale. Well, there will be whales eventually. And we love to see them. So send them to either my Facebook page, Twitter, or email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Yeah, with all these nice warm temperatures coming, lots of good reasons to get outside. Keep us in mind if you're going for a hike, take some photos. We love to see them.
Especially this weekend. Yeah, temperatures 21, 25 through central. Beautiful.
It's going to be great.
Hopefully. Hopefully it continues.
If the forecast pans out, then it'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. Hope you have a great evening.
Good night.